The scene is set in New York, the vampire venue. Jan Peter Zoon and his travelling companion Siegfried got off their plane late last night, hunkering down in the airport motel. They take a drive from the outskirts of the city back to New York. The towering monoliths piercing the night sky, pollution and fog making the air seem slick as oil. The car pulls, a rental, nothing that can be traced, towards the dock area. To Jan's disappointment, he finds that the cruise liner Nightshade is no longer in port. Cursing, the car sets in motion again, heading towards Manhattan proper, towards the one location Jan knows that he'll be able to find someone he needs to speak to. Donning his old disguise from when he snuck into the city once before, he enters into the bar, remembering the sights and sounds of Mr. Morgan's establishment. Mr. Silas's establishment.
Yeah.
Heads up to one of the serving staff. I'd like to see the boss.
Everyone does, dearie. Everyone does. Do you have a name?
He leans forward. Just get him, he says with enforced vampiric powers using Dominate. He has little time to spare pleasantries with the help.
This will cause a whole chain of effect. Sorry, there's a specific word for this, and it's escaping from me right now, but the chain reaction carries on until eventually another security, this one a security guard comes up to you, say, he's ready to see you now, sir.
Excellent. He strides past the security guard, barely noticing the...
You notice that the security has drastically increased in this place since the first couple of times you've been down here. You go and you get given a swipe code to get to the next level. That's still not where the level you need to be. You're then briefly overseen by another individual that you've seen before, which would be the security manager, who then gives you the code, which you can put into the other elevator to get to the actual VIP room. And once you get through that elevator, the doors open. To the left is where the office is, but the door for the main VIP rooms are open, and you can see at the head of the table, Mr. Silas is calmly awaiting your presence.
Jan enters, pleased with the increase in security. Nosferatu paranoia is legendary, and it's good to see that Mr. Silas has taken the matter of the city seriously. Once inside and the doors are firmly closed, he removes his head garments.
Well, welcome back to the penthouse, Peter Zoon. Long time no see.
Good evening, Mr. Silas. I'm sure you can imagine I am not too pleased to return.
Well, I can understand, but you didn't really tell us that you're leaving. I hope your time away has been good.
All too brief. But once again, New York seems to be on the verge of destroying itself.
In different ways this time.
Aren't they always? He takes his small satchel and puts it on the table, unleashes many scrolls, puts them out, and they seem to be very heavily annotated maps of the city. These were the maps I used during the first invasion of New York from my own studies, and when I was Prince I annotated them, but I'm not sure how much has changed since my absence.
I see, I see. And then there's been a few bits, how the various specials showed up and sort of claiming their own bits of territory for themselves.
Any changes on that front?
The Fallen are still in the Bronx. The Fairies are in unknown areas. Majors still keep to their university. Lupines still to Central Park. The Sabbat are around Staten Island.
So report, Mr. Silas, what has been going on?
We had a few issues with some betrayals on a regular basis. It started when Marcus, the Toreador Primogen, decided to go a bit crazy. Send everyone a message and make any secret of it that he was betraying us to make a run for the Sabbat. That hurt the Toreador's pride and reputation and image quite a bit. Needless to say, he was quickly dealt with before he even reached the plains.
The arrogance and hubris of that man knows no bounds.
He brought backup, unfortunately, and these backups weren't exactly subtle. To have spent several weeks repairing the Masquerade breach as some Tzimisce decided to go full on.
Good Lord, I didn't think it would have escalated this quickly. And what of the current situation?
You're not going to really want to hear it, but I'll tell it to you anyway. This one hit us hard. Well, we lost a good Malkavian in the previous betrayal. This one we lost Dr. Softly. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Our sheriff was kidnapped, and one of the Toreadors was also killed, all by the hand of Jonathan Voorhees DuPont.
Yes, my briefing before coming here mentioned something along those lines. Any idea why DuPont has suddenly turned...
He was infiltrating. There were some individuals that were calling themselves anarchs around Staten Island, and he was doing his usual infiltration stick. Myself and a few others decided to investigate further and managed to get them to reveal a bit of their true colors of their real allegiances. And I'm afraid he was probably drawn in by their own methods of propaganda this time. He decided to make quite a statement of leaving.
Yes. 2 Primogen. Dead, other kindred, who knows what.
This led to a bit of also more of a chain reaction. The Malkavian Primogen is also dead.
Yes, I heard of Miss Gainsborough.
Yes, that's what their clan has informed me anyways.
And what are preventative measures?
Preventative measures for the Camarilla and our section of Manhattan, or preventative measures on making sure they don't spread?
Both? Either? What have you and Icebreaker been doing in this? When word reaches like wildfire to Europe and to the inner circle, I hope you will have a litany of actions ready for the Archon and Justicar when they arrive.
Yes. Well, we've gathered up the Brujah might. Their numbers have increased and got them to form a bit of a coterie to get to work. The Tremere, we've also gotten to regroup, and they're getting to their work on the other side of things. So I'm awaiting a time for having a message with the regroup Malkavians that are thirsting for a bit of vengeance. I myself am sending some animal scouts, as is the gangrel fledgling of Mr. Green, to get a bit more information on whereabouts and special interest locations in Staten Island. I've spoke with a couple of the other specials of New York, and some of them are been recruited to go perform a bit of a rescue operation and potentially a little bit of a damage operation at the same time, depending what happens.
What of the independents?
The independents are rather few in number. There's what I believe, an actual real Anarch this time, floating around awaiting the prince's pleasure. The other independent was recruited into Clan Bruhar, now has the position of their hand. Oh, and remember Vinnie King?
Yes, I remember
Yes.
fondly.
Yes, unfortunately, I believe he's come down with a sudden case of death, and his shape-changing monstrosity has replaced him. I have this lovely video clip of him walking in full sunshine.
Well, always lively at the city.
Always has something new or even something really old to throw back.
Well, if you require it, I can dig up my old contacts from the Setites and the Giovanni, see if we can get them on side. I have notions to form a coterie of like-minded Camarilla supporters to act as a strike team. We will surgically remove these invaders from the city. Staten Island, you say? That is a very vulnerable position for them to be in. Can we not take the bridge? Routine maintenance, a natural disaster, something along those lines, to prevent their usual mode of escape and then systematically destroy them. They're not as embedded in the city as they were the first time round.
It's all a matter of timing and movements. Information is key. There's no point moving in a force if we have no idea where the force is going. Staten Island's still a reasonably large area, more than we can cover in a night or two.
Just so, what of our mortal influence? Has it grown or diminished?
It's been grown in several parts, but also been made more specific in areas. People have been focusing more on Manhattan as the crown jewel area. Not too many people were interested in Staten Island. Now it's everyone's interest. Now, as to your contacts, well, best be careful with them. The Giovanni, there's quite a few entities in the city that they're not going to be popular with. And the Setites, well, I did happen to meet a werewolf the other day that's on a kill mission to find and murder them.
As long as they don't join our enemies, that is good enough. Besides, we have left them pretty much to their own devices after the taking over of New York, so they will look on us favorably. All the allies we can get, and as long as we don't have daggers in our backs, I'd rather have daggers in what I can see.
On the other hand, I've been doing my bit to ensure everyone's equipped up. Turns out that idea of opening up a bit of an underground shop was a good one. We've got plenty of equipment to go around.
Well, no one said didn't have any foresight, Mr. Silas. It was only a matter of time before Ptolonia or some other jumped-up Priscus will be trying to take New York away from us. Who is leading the charge for the Sabbat? Do we know that?
I'd have to go through my notes. Out of character, I know who it is. I just can't remember their fucking name.
Clan, gen, title?
Bishop. There's two bishops apparently with interests here.
I see.
Had to perform a little bit of an exceedingly dangerous operation. I got into a cove that was filled with them and waited for them to stop.
Two bishops, that's an odd method for the Sabbat. usually when such dual purposes or dual forces come in, they end up eating each other more than us. If we have more information and names, perhaps we can coordinate a feign while we gather our forces, have the Sabbats turn on each other. It's worked in the past.
It would be nice to see that and then mop up whatever remains. Fortunately, their previous forces that were in the city, the ones belonging to the Sausage King and all those ones were recently eradicated.
Yes, I remember the report. Which is good if those shovelheads and idiotic barbarians joined up with the Sabbat main, we might have a real problem. What has Icebreaker got to say about all this?
Icebreaker's been making a few plans and is also, well, not particularly happy with the situation. He believes that we might be able to get some interrogation done. Through a contact of mine, I might be able to lure out one of the Sabbat members into prime capturing territory.
Just so. I'm sure you can imagine the requisition of DuPont is of prime concern. He was in the inner council of his sire when he was in New York, and knows far too much and can be a danger to not only this city but the Camarilla at large.
He is a priority target at the moment. The Bloodhunter has been called naturally. Kill or capture, I don't care which, just get him. That's pretty much what I've been spreading around.
Just so. The eye of the Camarilla is on this city, and as much as it galls me, I'm going to have to put on the best suits and ties for this one, Mr. Silas.
Yes, I've even been calling in a few of my old buddies, extra support. I've taken over many of the sheriff's old minions. Hopefully we will be able to rescue him. If we can't, I have those minions under thumb at the moment to ensure that when this Justicar and Archon arrive, we have a full security brigade ready to make sure that nothing goes horribly wrong near them.
Quite. If the Sabbat were to attack those two, it would certainly be damning towards Icebreakers and your reputation. Bell is an understanding sort and a good soldier. It is a shame we cannot employ his services more in New York. The Justicar, however, is a unique woman.
I've not met the Ventru Justicar.
In all honesty, Mr. Silas, she is not someone you want around your city, and has not really a habit of making friends where she goes.
And her Archon?
Unsure. As far as I'm concerned, it's just Bell and the Ventru.
Fair enough. Now, Boston's under quite a bit of pressure themselves, so they'll be wanting their stay to be short and sweet.
Yes. The upper echelons believe that a little pep talk is going to be enough to sort out the problems in this city. You believe so, Mr. Silas?
It's not a matter of are people motivated, it's the matter of how much we can push with our current capabilities. People want to do things. People are out there. People are crying for DuPont's blood. but people are cautious. People are making sure that we do not overextend ourselves and end up putting Manhattan under threat. Manhattan is going to be our little stronghold in this entire endeavor, and we aim to keep it regardless of what happens in Staten Island.
So what is your course of action? Weather it out? Or engineer a more favourable situation?
Mixture of both. Take and hold.
Slow process. Perhaps the Archon and Justicar could run afoul of a small squad of Sabbat just to show them how much their influence is needed in the city.
That's a risky proposition. I'm liking the idea of showing off our new Brewhard Death Squad.
Brewhard Death Squad.
Oh, that's what you call it when you get full like-minded Brewhard together that show that they actually have a couple of actual sense between them. It's kind of a rare occurrence.
I have to say I'm pretty curious about seeing this coterie myself. What of the Ventru?
There's a new one showed up that I haven't been able to make time for a meeting for just yet due to, well, the recent chaos. She says she's a psychiatrist professional. And other than that, with your leaving, there hasn't exactly been much Ventru presence besides Voorhees.
And now Voorhees has turned. A sad day.
No, I do have the means to potentially get his location. If you have the means to gather the troops for a surgical strike.
Jan smiles, leans back. I think I have just the person in mind.
I mean, we're waiting on you, Vinny.
Hang on, my computer's acting a little funky, but out of Jan's shadow, which is somewhat heavy, as he stands there, the young, youthful-looking, blonde-haired man sort of forms out of shadow as he comes out of the tenebrous form, standing behind Jan, flanking him, dressed to the nines, as he should be. And he just looks at Silas and smirks.
Welcome back, Ziggy.
You didn't think I would let you have all the fun without me, did you?
And just when the previous scourge has gone mad, we get the old one back to hopefully help rectify the matter.
Well, who's to say that this scourge is not mad as well? Just a different... What was it you said, Jan? A different form of mad?
Functioning. I don't care how mad you are, as long as you can function.
Functioning. That is what you call it.
Right, as to our current enemies, names aside, they're showing themselves to be the physical capable type. They caused a bit of a hiccup when they decided to go and slot up one of the fallen.
Taking on those creatures.
He was using at that point the individual that we're mainly after and believing the lead, semi-leading the front. He was calling himself Ajax. That's not his real name. But that's a name that has a bit of weight in the way that a lot of people want to murder him already, despite his short stay in the city.
Jan, didn't you... Didn't you know one of those creatures from the Bronx?
I knew a few. The idea was to broker an alliance. It's good to see that we can demonstrate that the Fallen are an effective weapon against our enemies, if a tiresome ally at best.
Well, we're currently having them. They agreed to help with retrieving Green and potentially doing whatever damage to the Sabbath they can during that operation.
It's been a fly on the wall for that assault. But it definitely seems that we have many strike teams. I myself, with Siegfried's help, made a small on-call unit of championship marksmen from Virginia and Baltimore, set up and ready to go.
I do like that the troops are gathering.
As I told you before, Mr. Silas, New York is the foothold into America. As we lose this, we might lose the very war.
Well, as a gift and, traditional has to apply, welcome back to the city. I hereby recognize your new place with the city and re-grant you the Nightshade.
Thank you.
Two new members of Clan Ventru, no?
Besides...
Well, let me put it to you this way. I know enough about my own clan to know that if they even get a hint of what I am, imagine the shitstorm it would bring down. I would imagine that it would be similar to the shitstorm that Voorhees has brought down upon the city for themselves.
It's worked before, Siegfried. You're not exactly a charge into the fray, screaming your name sort of a kindred. No. Picking off the choicest of meals. Besides, I will have a lot to deal with myself, Miss Rose, and Miss Jewel. I think we can be flashier for all of you.
Miss Jewel is planning to visit again then?
Unconfirmed. But I would not do myself service if I could not dig up a suitable reward for her involvement.
As to, before we get distracted, with your own clan member, here's the contact details for Arabeth. If you do decide to meet with them, please apologize that I haven't been able to meet with them sooner.
Arabeth. Minor Ventru is little power and sway. I'm not sure how much good he will do to us, but...
Well, every tool's a tool worth having when you need it.
Very true. What of the...
If nothing else, there's always a certain panache the Ventru have for taking quite a few hits to the face.
What of the Tremere and the Nosferatu?
Well, the Nosferatu, we've only kept small numbers in the city after our last tragic loss. Just me and Goblin at the moment, keeping an eye on things. Unfortunately, with Vinny lost to us, it's been a little bit of a hit. The Tremere have regathered their strength at the moment. contact for them is Mr. Thursday. I can provide it for you. They're, at this point in time, pretty raring to go.
About time. Maybe they have some sane leadership for a change.
I'm sure you'll be quite happy with Mr. Thursday once you meet him. He's one of those types of gentlemen that you can't help but like.
Well, it does
You know,
seem
the competent kind.
Without the other supernaturals, you are stretched for numbers in this city, it seems.
This has been our prime reason why we've been hunkering down. It's about known for gathering their numbers quite well. Our numbers are a bit short.
So, Essential Silas, how can the Camarilla assist you in this?
Well, your presence so far is a rather large boost.
Come now. Will you start coordinating attacks and defense plans?
That would be a good start. Certain islands are the type of place that it's easy to cut off, but difficult to take. It's rather spread out, lots of little hidey holes. It's like if a area gets infested by ticks. You can't just pull and scratch at them. You have to go head deep and catch them by the head and pull them all the way out. It'll hurt, but it's the only way to remove it.
Seneschal Silas, is there any member of the court currently that holds a certain number of contacts within the areas of infrastructure?
That would be myself.
I do believe it would be quite the shame that if the tunnels and bridges heading into Staten Island were suddenly all in need of very, very immediate attention to service, maintenance.
Yes, but that's the type of influence use, well, contact abuse, that can only last for a certain period of time. And time means everything.
Simply a thought, but I do like the idea of bottlenecking our enemy into a single venue of approach.
With the tunnels and bridges out, it will be a simple matter to take our Camarilla forces, special units, comprised of different talents, and walk across the water, keeping vigilant and ghoul guards across the banks of Manhattan. So therefore, if they have a similar idea, they will come out cold, wet, and staked.
The last time I managed to locate their whereabouts was on a boat moored at Staten Island called the Hammer.
I see. Do we have a Master of All Specs within the city at the moment?
There was an individual, Mr. Peck. He's particularly talented at this type of thing. I believe you know the gentleman?
I do recall Mr. Peck. He was introduced to me not that long ago. Excellent.
He's been a little bit out of touch on recent bits, but it's not like I've been calling him on a regular basis.
I would make a change to that. Having an Allspecs user scan Staten Island for hotspots, as well as using the Tremere rituals that were employed during the war, would be a certain way to locate the havens of the Sabbat. One at a time. Eventually, we will close the trap.
We do have a small issue of one poor lone kindred. Before his capture, the sheriff, Mr. Green, had created a new fledgling.
Are there no gangrel to take the adoption?
Not at this time.
Why are you bringing this up, Mr. Silas?
Because, well, if you were an incredibly passionate type of gangrel that knew that your sire was still alive and kidnapped, wouldn't you be doing everything in your power to go and try and find them? It's a little wild card I can't quite calculate.
One life or the city, Mr. Silas?
Oh no, I'm not suggesting one life or the city. I'm suggesting that you have a nice little devoted tool that you could put to use for yourself. She's quite skilled with animalism.
Perhaps, or an untested loose cannon.
True, but the other problem is that a house of cards can be easily knocked down by the smallest of winds.
Which is why we keep track of every single one of ours that is floating away.
Fine, if you believe this fledgling could be of help.
Well, it's better to have a place for them in the plan rather than expecting a plan to go flawlessly and then have her barreling through it.
Yeah, I do believe your name does still carry some weight in this city. Perhaps it would boost a wayward fledgling's morale if someone of your station were to take an interest in her.
Babysitting now, am I?
No, I think this is the type of operation that you might be suitable with, Siggy.
Wait, me?
Oh yes, you and the type of work that you like to do and your can-do attitude.
I didn't even keep Rose around for all that long. What makes you think I want to take on a fledgling gangrel?
Well, Rose is now hand of the Brujah.
What?
Yes, and she's looking after the clan quite well.
What an interesting development.
I'll have to make sure that she knows that you're back in the city. I think a reunion might be in order.
Yeah, at this point, Siggy's going to spend a willpower point, not to frenzy.
Oh god, I haven't even mentioned Dr. Softly to Siggy. That would be great. But no, that would be really stupid.
It's a very small room in here, Mr. Silas.
Okay, and fledgling aside, we have tools, we have a small number of troops here and there. We have things in the works, and we potentially have a squad of fallen ready to jump on doing their thing on the side. What we don't know is exactly how many of the Sabbat are coming, how much support that they have, whether they've managed to get their claws into any other parts of New York.
Do you know that in Miami there was an interesting little rumor going around that the Sabbat were getting torn apart by lupines left and right? All because some of theirs were found dead with Sabbat ankhs branded into their flesh.
Worth an idea, but I don't think that type of trickery is going to go down well. Bear in mind,
Oh, it's
I've s-
quite a risky endeavor, but if it works, Camarilla may never even have to lift a single finger.
A dangerous proposition. From my notes, only one kindred tried something that insane. Toreador Enver, the wild card, they called him.
Not to mention, I wouldn't rely on the lupines for this. So far, their hit squads have been, let's say, not particularly effective. When I'm holding off the enemy and they're running away, there's something very wrong with this picture.
Running away.
Yes, with their little tails between their legs.
Out of character, I'm just shaking my head right now at you, Justin, so hard.
Oh, you man.
Oh.
Well, it is done. Forming the coteries. The stalwart hammer for them to break upon, and the knife surgically remove the threat. We keep them bottled in, and we can pick at them until they turn on themselves.
Well, the anvil's in place. It's just getting all the other pieces together now. Good to have you back, Mr. Peterson. Is there anything that you need that the city can do for you? And Siggy, of course.
Require a secure haven. I take it the Ventru domain is fallen, or at least compromised, now that Dupont has been taken.
I wouldn't trust it at this point, but no one's touched Ventru Tower in quite some time, according to my records.
Ventru Tower was a trap. Designed to be a death cage. I meant somewhere I can feel safe.
Right. For some place to actually stay? Well, not too many people knew of your you're staying at the Nightshade. You can have that place back. Otherwise, I can provide something a little bit more suitable.
If you would be so kind, Mr. Silas. Nightshade is a good fallback point, but I do not want to be overly reliant on it.
Well, you see those buildings, all those lovely buildings that you can see through the window from here? I have sniper teams on most of them, and many of them actually live on several of the lower floors. How about one of those penthouse suites? They can also provide the means for quick evacuation should that building come under threat, where you can simply drift away. That, or even emergency location from one building to the other one, can be quite interesting.
Just so. A thought has occurred. I remember from your report back during the Mishi crisis that your Nosferatu area of Oz was quite a colourful place.
It's been spending quite some time redesigning and replacing all the traps of Oz.
Just a thought, but perhaps a tempting target, i.e. the son of Hotstadt, or the Sombra anti-tribune, might be the right bait to lure the Sabbat into that particular.
You want to lure them into my custom-designed death trap?
Siggy at this point is just lowering his head, pinching the bridge of his nose. I knew you were going to do that. I knew there was a reason you wanted me to come, and it wasn't that you just enjoyed my company.
Oh, that as well. And I also enjoy the way you tear Sabbat apart, Siegfried. The right person for the right job. It is an option.
So, how do you feel like becoming a Minotaur in a labyrinth?
Before we go advertising, I would like to meet some of the more capable kindred in the city and see who exactly has the brass, as it were, to stand at my side. This is not something I am going to go into alone.
No. We will make sure that this is perfect death trap. In fact, it would be the perfect opportunity to use the independence. The Giovanni or the Setites would gladly sell the information to the Sabbat, and it will not seem as suspicious. Jan Peterzoon and his the Sombra aide had met with them in hope of establishing the Camarilla Independent Alliance. Them, not wanting to take sides, have decided to sell that information on to the other sect to make sure that they're betting both horses. It would seem natural and a perfect ploy.
If you have the person in mind to pull that off on their end, I quite like your thinking, Mr. Peterson. I don't want to lose Oz under any circumstances, but it would be quite nice to see all these bits and pieces I placed in there put to use, and how effective my death trap is.
I'm going to be lit on fire again.
Oh no, I've got much worse things than that.
No, I just have a feeling. Jan remembers what happened the last time that happened.
He shudders a little. Ideally, our lives will not have to be put into risk, Siegfried. And I trust Mr. Silas when he says that his death trap will be something very impressive.
Then, Jan, how are we going to proceed with our endeavors?
First things first, as Mr. Silas says, intel. Contact our various allies in the city, re-establish our networks, make sure that my influence strains have not decayed completely, bring in our sniper teams, and await Mr. Silas's instruction. We are...
Mr. Peterson, I have a question.
Of course.
How skilled were you with the use of the presence discipline?
I am no master, but I have gone a long way. I can some, if that is what you're asking.
Yes, just an idea. It's one of those skills I haven't had available quite some time. It would just be an interesting test if DuPont can be simply called.
I assumed Icebreaker had already done it. Or at least some corridor.
Well, most of our Toreador are currently dead.
Yes, that business with Marquez. We heard it was quite
Hey,
terrible.
you heard about it as well. News does get around fast.
Well, we seem to be very connected from some anonymous source here in the city.
Shall I put together a team for you two with the Prince?
Not at this point. I think I will spend my time here inspecting the troops, as it were. It seems to be what I'm good at.
No, Siegfried. We may be at war, but the etiquette of the Camarilla cannot be made to wait. We must present ourselves to the Prince.
Etiquette is so very tiring, especially when there's work to be done, but unfortunately I am following your lead on this, aren't I?
When are you not?
That is a good question. When am I not? When is it my turn to run the mission?
I don't know. Do well, and perhaps we can leave this little partnership behind. But we have so much fun, Siegfried.
Well, I do remember Istanbul.
I'm glad. It is one of the things I do not remember. Absent-tainted blood is a bad thing.
You make it sound like it was such a terrible, terrible thing. I remember having quite a bit of fun.
Where you got the wimples from, I have no idea.
Trade secret, sir. Trade secret.
I'm not even going to ask. I'm just going to let that one slide.
I wouldn't. Well then, on that interesting side note, I suspect we have much to do. Mr. Silas, if you require anything, you have only need to ask.
Of course. Do you have new contact arrangements already sorted?
Yes. He takes out his phone and waves it.
Excellent. Okay, out of character. How do you feel about changing the scene onto the next one?
Might as well. We're all here.
Excellent. So, while I go and make your arrangements for your new personal haven, shall I send you two off to go and meet with Icebreaker?
Yes.
I'll have a car ready for you downstairs, ready to take you to whichever location he chooses for the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Silas. Competent as always.
While you're here, help yourself to a drink, and whenever you wish to, when Icebreaker's ready, I'll inform you when it's time to leave.
Siggy will help himself to a drink and then look back at Jan. Yes, Jan, have yourself a drink.
Jan grinds his teeth a little. No, I am well fed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to disappear off into my office and go ring-a-ding-ding, Icebreaker.
Oh, what is it?
My prince, good evening. I've got two individuals that need to have a meeting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Recently returned to the city. Jon Petersoon and Siegfried.
I'll meet you at the north part of the sheriff's domain.
Good choice. Will you want us waiting outside or inside?
The park will do.
Excellent. We'll see you soon. And Mr. Silence will pop back to the other two. Whenever you're ready, gentlemen.
Off we go then.
Off we go. And the trio will go and disappear, and wibbly they get into a car, and which is driven by one of my professional ghouls, who's professionally a ghoul. And they will go towards the set location that was said by Icebreaker. And while that happens, I will be right back, ladies.
The car pulls up in front of the park, and the driver gets out, opening the front door for Silas, and does the same at the rear door for Siegfried and then Jan. And
Takes note of the order in which the door was opened, but doesn't say anything.
Siegfried adjusts his jacket a bit as he walks in. A noticeable difference than when he was putting on his persona for the court before, making his way into the center of the park, presumably with Jan in tow.
Jan follows in his usual business-like stride, his face a mask of contemplation, as he's already thinking of various means in which to re-establish himself in the city, at least briefly, to deal with this current threat.
Jan, I do wonder if my bar is still together.
Your bar?
Oh, club.
Ah, yes. Your artistic project.
You never did come by and stay for very long.
Not my scene, Siegfried, I'm afraid. Not my scene.
Sometimes it's just polite to endure it for your friends.
I'm sure you don't need me cheerleading your culinary endeavors.
I don't know, Jan. You might look good in a pair of leather pants and a choker.
Get that thought out of your head right now before I erase it from your memory.
Okay. And after a few moments of walking in silence with Siegfried with a very large, toothy grin on his face and Jan looking more than likely annoyed, they finally come to the predetermined meeting spot.
To actually find Lennison flipping a coin over his knuckles while waiting with a very good view on the possible approaches.
Jan will immediately enter and bow deeply in old European etiquette when addressing a prince.
Please, Mr. Peters, no need for that right now.
It's good to see you, Mr. Lennison, although I wish the circumstances were a little better.
Well, it seems the Brummagem Council in general has decided to disband itself. Well, most of the Brummagem Council anyhow.
Yes, with a sudden case of betrayal or death.
Or, to be more precise, betrayal or death by aforementioned betrayal.
Just so, the echoes of which are being felt quite high up the chain, Mr. Icebreaker. I am sure you're aware of the developments. Myself and Siegfried seem to be the forwarding party. You have other guests arriving soon, under the orders of my sire.
Yeah. Let's get the small talk. Are you here to assist in stabilizing the city, or are you here to whitewash your clan?
Damage control, Mr. Lennison. Damage control. The insult to Clan Venture will not stand, certainly, but New York, as I have spoken to yourself and Mr. Silas, is the foothold in the Americas. I am not allowing all my work for the past few years to go wasted on one insolent brat.
That's understandable, and it's not that I would deny the Ventru the privilege. Let's not call it a privilege, the right to exact full measure of their grievances from said individual. I will be happy to assist in that, as said individual did put down my hand-picked Brummagem for Clan Bruja. So, on that, I have no problem with your presence in the city, and I imagine you will be looking forward to making certain that the next time you leave the city, the Ventru will once more be a strong name.
Just so. But my concern here is not for the clan, it is for the sect at large.
Well, it's in the best interest for the sect in this city for the Ventru to step up.
Just so. I have spoken with length with Mr. Silas over your current plans of action. Is there anything you require from the Camarilla at large?
Can I have 20 hand-picked hounds from Europe? I'll have them routed in 5 days.
Perhaps not.
I'd imagine that would be a bit too much to ask. But one can always hope.
Well, the presence of the Archon and the Justicar for their little pep rally might be inspirational enough for them to turn tail and run.
I'm somewhat suspicious of that. They did have the audacity, and probably still do, to present themselves to some as anarchs instead of Sabbat. And one of their leaders apparently had the temerity to call themselves a baron before we even met.
Wow. 2 supposed barons in less than the span of 6 months.
Let's just say that unfortunately it does bring any possible true anarchs who might have some sense in them as it pertains to agreements in a very dim view. We'll have to see how that develops. I've heard news of there being some recruitment efforts from the anarchs, whether that is in quotation marks for the anarchs part or not remains to be solved out.
Is there any word from the independents?
I have had some discussions with my European contacts on that front. I believe the Sabbath will find that the playfield is changing.
Well, let us hope that it falls in our favor then.
Well, we are currently on the back foot, so changing the field is certainly not going to inconvenience us anymore.
I have brought with me the previous maps with updated notations of the original invasion, as well as details of the particular tactics used to rout the Sabbat when they were more entrenched. I have also a detailed list of the varying dignitaries from the independent clan, which I spoke to the first time round. With your permission, Prince Lenison, I would like to recontact the Giovanni and the Setites and enlist them in the disposal of this new threat.
Once I have had a chance to meet with my possibly arriving contacts, I will make certain that the next person they talk to is yourself. They should be arriving in city, or perhaps be even in the city already. They just have been advised to be a little bit careful about announcing their presence just yet. They are getting some private areas handed by a Camarilla prince for some meager small services rendered to myself that will keep them theoretically independent. And allow them to be invested in keeping Sabbat away from certain areas of the city. It will be a future headache, of course, having them around, but that's a future headache that will have to happen if the Sabbat gets properly dealt with.
You're sharing a city with lupines, fae, and what they call themselves demons. I think independents are a lesser of two evils. At least we know which way the wind blows.
Indeed. Unfortunately, the other specials have not quite lived up to the expectations as it comes to their efficiency in, or shall we say, usefulness. But On the Camarilla side, would you be opposed to taking the Primogen Pro Tempore position once more? To see to it that the next Ventru Primogen who steps up and is recognized in the city as having routed parts of the Sabbat will be without question loyal to the Camarilla.
I will be more than happy to advise the current clan in its leadership, he says, smirking a little. But it does not thrill me to re-establish myself in the old position. I am much more eager to get rid of these invaders in your city, my prince.
Well, like I said, unfortunately, we do not live in times where it's possible to just have a set of cavalry and rout the rebel.
We have discussed a few stratagems with your Seneschal. I'm sure he will make a full report once this meeting is done, which might prove beneficial. But it seems from Mr. Silas that information is lacking on our enemy and numbers. He mentions there are 2 bishops that are currently leading the crusade.
Possibly, though it's always possible that some of the higher leadership has not made themselves just known yet. And if there are bishops, you would expect to see an archbishop.
Do we feel that Paulownia is back?
We would be seeing shovelheads from last encounters, I imagine, a lot more than this.
Well, that's one blessing.
It does then make some sense that with Boston in the shape it is, he could be further north than New York.
That is the current theory, but it's not exactly one to be easily predicted.
The problem with that is that currently we are in a situation where how shall I put it? We have not had a large problem with shovelheads in any borough, even the Staten Island, which I currently believe is the borough they are trying to settle in or have to a degree settled in. There are no shovelheads. That means they are either trying to keep it in reserve or have something else planned for it. Or then they are just keeping that as a if you push us too far option.
The way I see it, my prince, we have numerous objectives. Of prime importance is to bring back, dead or alive, the captured Camarilla members and the traitors, so that information does not slip into Sabbat hands, although most likely it already has. Second is to locate their mutual havens for a surgical strike upon them all. With the right collection of abilities and manpower, it can be achieved in a few days.
Well, I will actually raise a point that I think will be even a degree above those you have mentioned. To make most of the information they currently may have as irrelevant and useless as possible, or perhaps even to a harmful degree. This is the sheriff's domain. It was held by Sheriff Green, And if Sheriff Green is not recovered, this might be a location for them to try and take. Unless it's held ready and waiting.
What are the skirmishes that have happened before? What have been their tactics? Are they... You said they came here under a false pretense of anarchs. You believe this is a small scouting force in lieu of a larger invasion?
The one time I have laid eyes on, it seems they are more interested in recruiting at the moment. They are playing nice. Not necessarily a good thing for us. I would have preferred a frontal assault, to be honest. So much easier to identify which side a person stands on. Now we have to be very careful with any future additions to the numbers.
It does give us a chance to mobilize.
Well, all the current bourgeois have, under my eye, had to answer to rows to their allegiances.
That should prove most effective.
And I am expressly refraining from appointing any new primogen from Clan Toreador, for instance, until the clan and a person make themselves exceedingly hard to deny that recognition. They will earn it this time. I'll not hand it.
We're at war, Prince Lennison. Titles and during peacetime are prized commodities. Now there is only one title that matters. Prince. And who the prince trusts.
I trust that you have the best interest of Camarilla at heart, Mr. Peterson. I trust you want to see the Ventrue shield without the tarnish, and I will be happy to help you with both. I'll trust my Seneschal and Warden to do his best to keep the other uniques off our backs while we deal with the Sabbat, and perhaps even try and see if he is able to convince some of them to not give him direct assistance, but perhaps unwitting one. I have, as I mentioned, laid eyes on one of them, so the option of using just to summon one of them to my presence exists. But if they are familiar with that little trick, it means we would need
With enough kindred, they soon run out of the ability to resist.
Yes, the problem is if they are familiar with the concept, they could be bringing friends. So we want to make certain that any place they are going is dangerous for more than one person. But yes, I have given the ideas some thought. I note that you brought someone with you. I hope he will not be announcing too loudly who he is just yet.
Well, if DuPont is truly in their clutches and working for them, if I'm seen in the city and he gets word of it, my secret is up. But Jan has expressed some desire to use the Lasombra anti-tribu as bait.
I'm thinking that the last information is that Ziggy was in Europe. So,
Siggy stayed in Europe.
while Mr. Hagenboth has joined the ranks of the Ventru to assist the management for the moment. Welcome to the city, Mr. Hagenboth.
It was nice to see you again, Prince of Innocent. Jan, what do you think of your new clanmate? Is he not all the makings of a great Ventru indeed, worthy of the shield indeed?
Jan opens his mouth as if to speak, closes it, and just nods.
Siegfried's going to look very like he's accomplished something there, with a nice big smile on his face. If it is all right with you, my prince, I would like to inspect the troops, as it were.
You're
See if I
going to
can-
find the ranks of Ventru quite thin at the moment.
I was talking about the Camarilla as a whole here in the city. See if there are any capable hands and, well, any crack shots. Anyone who might be a cut above the rest.
The
Obviously. Clan
the
and Clan Gangrel come to mind, but
Clans Perugia, Nosferatu, and strangely enough,
I would ask for permission to inspect the Tremere, but the last time I dealt with Tremere in the city, I was out the commission for about 5 days.
the Tremere are quite numberful at the moment, so I'm raising some hopes on them being useful.
Indeed. But with your permission, I will take a look at the fledgling Silas told me about,
Acceptable.
and poke my nose in around the various hangouts of the kindreds within the city, and see if there's one or two that might work for a little plan that Silas, myself, and Jan seem to, well, agree on the potential effectiveness to draw them in.
We will actually I would have prefer you to I would prefer you to give a look into the Malkavians, Siegfried, and perhaps even you, Mr. Peter Zoom, their previous Primogen race concerns, whether or not she was quite as committed to the cause as we would hope.
Well, I would
And good. As the other side goes, should you find that you have eyes on a promising candidate for the Scourge, do let me know.
shall be done.
Anything else that needs to be addressed immediately?
No, you have been very gracious, my prince.
Ah, yes, there was something. I believe Clan Ventrue still holds the Wall Street in trust. And from the south point of Manhattan, there is a ferry ride straight to the Staten Island. That is a direct access to this island that needs to be seen to.
With permission, Prince Lenison, may I re-establish the old domain in which I held for the Ventrue?
Consider yourself invited to do so, Mr. Peterson.
If the Sabbat use that way to get in, they will be noted.
Very good. Currently, if there is any information gathering you wish to conduct on the individuals, either one or some agents you wish to send, I have a good reason to assume that this is a Staten Island will be very, very
Well, Jan,
promising lead. Let us put it that way. They are strong in that presence and did, from reports, react very quickly when unknown faces appeared. Were quick to challenge them. I have made the neighboring borough of Brooklyn a rack for the young kindred. For any of the Camarilla to hunt freely.
Then I request Mr. Levison for an updated version from your Harpy records over every registered kindred within this city, so that we may recognize strangers.
That is something we unfortunately might find to be somewhat lacking with the passing of the Bourgeois Primogen and the current, former Keeper of Elysium, and those records, we will see if they can't be recovered. I have encouraged the existing Toreador to show me that they can exert influence over queens in some measure. I have also encouraged any and all members of Camarilla to gaze outside of Manhattan to the other boroughs. Bronx, of course, withheld as per old agreements, which may or may not be falling under some re-evaluation in a short while. Depends what the warden's words are on that count. But for the moment, those hold. But if there is any promising young Ventrue who wants to make themselves well known and makes that desire known to yourself, all they need to do is show that they can establish control of one of the lesser boroughs, and they might be rewarded with domain in Manhattan.
Always a nice commodity to have. Well, Jan, I think we have some work to do, don't we?
Quite a bit of it. Thank you, my prince.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Peterson. Pleasure to make your acquaintance, even under these circumstances again. And Lenison just heads off like he wasn't quite that concerned about the possibility of walking straight into an ambush. Maybe he knows something.
Well then, Jan, I'm sure that Silas will have arrangements made by now. Shall we go see what our accommodations will be?
Quite. I'm eager to get started.
Oh, the fun.
And with that, the scene ends.